Welcome to Root Cause Medicine, presented by Spirit of Health, transforming lives through real health solutions. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Root Cause Medicine podcast. I am Dr. Vaughn with Spirit of Health, and our special guest today is Dr. Stuart Hoover. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Yeah, so Dr. Hoover and I have something in common. We're both naturopaths, and naturopaths aren't overly common in our world today. So it's awesome to talk to another naturopathic doctor and to learn from Dr. Hoover. Today, we are going to be talking about deficiencies. We're going to be talking about vitamins and minerals. Dr. Hoover represents today a company called Mother Earth Labs, which is a company I've just fallen in love with because their products are so amazing. I just feel like they're the best of the best. And so I'm excited about today because people need good nutrition today. We're nutrient deficient. It's easily, we could say everybody's deficient in vitamins and minerals. I've seen this over the years as a naturopathic doctor. So let's start, Dr. Hoover, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then let's get into, the meat of this and talking about what people need to know about deficiencies.
Absolutely. Well, again, it's vice versa. It's wonderful to be on with another naturopathic doctor. And you're right. We're kind of a rare breed out there
Yeah.
today. But, I started this journey over 30 years ago. My original background, believe it or not, was in healthcare administration. And was interesting being on that side of the fence and, just kind of watching front line about how our medical system was changing. And it just seemed to be the focus was more on management and identification of disease. And myself, going through some health challenges, kind of got outside of that box and started reading and researching and looking for ways to help improve my health. I was one of those workaholics, probably working 70 hours a week, eating bad, doing all the classic things. And it really opened my eyes to this whole other world out there of, naturopathic, alternative, integrative medicine, whatever you want to call it. And I had to make a choice. Do I kind of stay here and kind of be unhappy with where I am, or do I just change career paths? And that's what I did, and went after my degree in naturopathic medicine, actually, in holistic medicine, and opened a practice up about 25 years ago, not too far from where you are. I was in Springfield, Missouri, for 21 years. And interesting town, if you know Springfield, because per capita is probably one of the lowest patient to doctor ratios. It's, an interesting town. I mean, the largest employer is the healthcare system there. So it was an interesting world to come into, and quite a battle the first few years. But we had a very successful practice for 21 years, worked with people all around the globe. By the time I kind of wrapped up my practice, specializing in functional blood chemistry analysis, helping to develop some platforms actually to utilize that. So our whole approach really was helping to empower people to understand, like you said, the root cause of disease. We don't just leap from being healthy to disease. We go through these phases of dysfunction before we get there. And that was really our approach. We were very blessed to have had a thriving practice and worked with probably close to 30,000 clients over my career, and still have a great connection to a lot of those folks. So that's a little bit of my history.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for sharing. So where did Mother Earth Labs come into the picture?
Well, it was probably, I would say, 15 years ago. I was at a continuing ed conference in Austin, Texas, and one of the speakers there was the founder of Mother Earth Labs, Carrie Lynn Carter, who was a biochemist. And it was kind of in their infancy. They had only been around for about 5 years. And she was talking about humic and fulvic acids, these incredible molecules that I really had never heard of. And after coming back from that lecture, I remember walking into my office that next morning and going past our product room, which I kind of dubbed our $1 million room. because we had about 300 different products in there.
Yeah.
And it really got me to kind of thinking of how we were approaching things after going to this conference. Were we really managing, kind of just trying to help symptoms, or were we truly getting to the root
Hmm.
cause, which I like to look at as cellular dysfunction?
Right.
And that's kind of where my journey began. And I struck up quite a relationship with this biochemist. We started working together. I started transitioning out of a lot of the products I was using, bringing the few things at that time they were offering in, and kind of simplifying the process in our practice. But what I was witnessing was incredible changes with people
Hmm.
by taking, I'd like to say, kind of more of a simplistic, minimal approach, by really focusing more on improvement of cellular energetics, cellular energy. And a lot of this, as you mentioned earlier, kind of came down to dealing with a lot of these critical deficiencies people were dealing with, one being trace mineral deficiencies.
Right.
And as you mentioned, I think I've read research that 92% of Americans are deficient in one or many trace minerals. I would say probably 100%
Yeah.
today. And, without these vital trace minerals, it affects how a lot of things happen in the body, how we process things like vitamins or the bigger minerals that people are running around taking, calcium and magnesium and potassium. So it really kind of was a real pivotal shift in my practice on how we began looking at working with our clients. Instead of somebody coming in, with diabetes or cancer or, an autoimmune condition, and just trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of manage the symptoms. Let's really dig down deep and get to the root. And that's kind of where it all began with Mother Earth Labs.
Well, that's great. So I quote over and over Genesis 2:7. The Lord
Hmm.
God formed man out of dust of the earth,
Right.
right? And breathed into him the breath of life. So
Absolutely.
there's just this reality that people need to understand, and I'll say it 10,000 more times in my career, that we have to understand human health based off of God's design of the human
Hmm.
body. We're made
Absolutely.
out of dust of the earth, which means we're made of minerals. And so when
Hmm.
it really comes down to it, we're oxygen, we're nitrogen, we're minerals, we're vitamins, we're actually light, like God is light, right?
Absolutely.
Designed to absorb sunshine. There's actually pictures people have taken where there's light coming out of people's cells.
Sure.
So it's fascinating. So just with that concept in mind, why
Hmm.
don't you give us a little bit more as far as understanding just this reality that our bodies function based off of how God designed them to work.
That's
At
right.
the cellular level, we need minerals and vitamins. Give us, maybe I could say it this way, give us a convincing argument why people need to supplement, because people are like, oh, I'm okay, I don't need to
Hmm.
supplement, or yeah, I've heard about magnesium, so like I'm taking a magnesium supplement. Like over my years, I'm like, no, we are chronically deficient.
Hmm.
We need to do labs, blood work. I'm also very big into functional blood chemistry.
Hmm.
We need to do labs, hair analysis, different things to determine what your deficiencies are and address them in a real serious way,
Hmm.
because the reality is the body will not work right.
Right.
Cells, the tissues, the organs, detoxification at the cellular level, these things do not work without the proper nutrients in place. So can you give us more with that starting point?
Yeah, well, when we think about the nutrient deficiencies today, and I agree with you, it's important for people to look towards these functional analysis so they can get a baseline to see where they're at, because it's not going to lie. If you're deficient or dysfunctional, you're going to pick that up way before you become pathogenic, like typical, lab work today. But when we think about how did we get here, so much of it has happened with the way our whole approach to food growing, or engineering, I like to call it today, has gone.
Right.
When we talk about humic and fulvic acids, these miracle molecules the body has to have to support proper cellular function. When you look at commercial farming practices today, um, they're basically destroying the opportunity in our soils for vegetation to break down and basically make these wonderful molecules.
Hmm.
And that's done through overcultivating soil. We don't let ground rest like we used to in the old days, so they could build that nutrition back up in the soil.
Right.
We're using pesticides, herbicides that destroy microorganisms in the soil that break vegetation down to make what we call humate, where these molecules come from. So what's happened is we basically killed the soil,
Right.
and we're engineering. We can force things to grow and engineer it where it looks good. But when you look at foods today, I mean, cabbage, apples, greens, these things are basically void of nutrients that a decade or two ago were just plentiful
Hmm.
in. So, we have to eat to survive, right? Food's our fuel. But what we're doing today is we're just putting engineered processed things in the body that, are maybe, filling us up, but they're not really sustaining life. We're robbing the resources that God gave us. I think you would agree that genetically we're capable of living 120 years.
Absolutely.
We go back to the Bible and Genesis. I mean, it was a lot longer than that,
Mhm.
and we can talk all day about what occurrences happened to shrink that. But we know today 120 years shouldn't be uncommon. Of course, you tell people that, and they're like, wow, so I'm going to be sick for 70 years because I'm 50 today and I feel horrible. And
Right.
what's happened is we've just depleted the internal resources that was given to us to last that 120 years, and eventually the coffers just become empty.
And
And when we think about disease today, even the medical system tells us that 90% of chronic disease in our country, obesity, these autoimmune conditions, cancer, is linked back to poor nutrition and lifestyle.
right.
But
Right.
the focus just hasn't been there. So, to I guess justify that, it's even being justified through the medical system. It's just not being dealt with.
Right. I want to quote Genesis 6:3 based off of what you said. My spirit shall not strive for man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his years shall be 120 years.
Absolutely.
So even, post flood, God's intention was for us to be able to live 120 years.
Right.
And so I believe that's attainable. There are people out there still in their, 90s and into their hundreds that are decently healthy. But I guess what I would pose to you is people might say things like, well, I eat organic,
Hmm.
so I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts, but my opinion today is the food supply has been so damaged
Hmm.
for so many decades now that I don't know if necessarily just eating organic is going to make everything okay.
No, I mean,
Oh,
organic may mean that they're not using fertilizers or pesticides, but we're still dealing with the fact that the soil's been so depleted today.
right,
We may be, organic has become quite an interesting term today when you look at it, because it may mean, again, there's not a chemical exposure, but it's not validating the nutrient density of that food
right,
today.
right,
So, and that's a great point to make, because that's what a lot of people think. I'll just start buying all this organic stuff. But the fact is, these are still very void of vital nutrients in the body, especially trace minerals.
right. So let's say people are listening to this and they're like, okay, I get it. We have a food supply problem. We're deficient
Hmm.
in nutrients. We all know that. Where do people start? Like, let's
Right.
get people to practicals. Again, I think Mother Earth Labs has amazing products. Clearly, your formulators are brilliant. I don't know who they are, but every time a new formula comes out, or I'm comparing your product to
Hmm.
somebody else's, I'm like, wow! Like as a naturopath, like I know a lot of
You
things.
get it.
So
Yeah.
I see these formulas and I'm like, whoa, okay, they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. These formulas are brilliant. How do they do it? But like where do people start
Right.
to start repairing some of this damage? And they may or may not feel it immediately. So how do you
Right.
convince people to take something when they don't even necessarily feel
Right.
like they need to?
Well, we just adapt, right? I mean, you probably have seen this many times in clinic that You bring somebody in the first time, you talk with them, they're like, yeah, I feel pretty good. They seem to think they're in pretty good shape. And then 2 or 3 months later, after you've been working with them, they come in and go, wow, I didn't realize what a train wreck I was.
Totally.
Because we just kind of adapt to, it becomes our new norm
Yeah.
today. But when you talk about a starting point, I love this question because being that so many people take supplements today.
Hmm.
Let's just face it, we're a society that wants a quick fix,
Right.
the path of least resistance. We're used to taking things. I even kind of refer to the nutraceutical world today as kind of a green allopathic approach because it's almost become that way.
Yeah.
And, we still have to get down to the raw facts that unless we're supporting cellular health, you mentioned this earlier, and I love the way you phrase that. We are cells that make up tissues, that make up organs, that make up systems.
Right.
So I always kind of call it the trickle up method. And, without properly functioning cells, healthy cells, the tissues become dysfunctional, which equates to dysfunctional organs and systems. And so much of what's being evaluated today is the dysfunction at that system and organ level. And until you fix the cellular dysfunction, you're never going to achieve true wellness. That's just my opinion on this.
Hmm.
Okay. And this is what I loved about Mother Earth Lab's approach when I first heard this, when we were talking about these molecules, humic and fulvic, and what they do in the body. I like to just simply say they're the best option we have for improving cellular membrane energetics and dynamics. And what does that mean? It means that when we break all of our cells down, you said you've seen pictures of light
Hmm.
coming. Cells make energy.
Right.
We are electrical like we're biochemical, and it's like every cell is a little generator of energy.
Mm.
The cell membrane has to carry a specific charge on there to help move things in and out of the cell. So what happens over time is we begin to lose that energetic process on the cell membrane. So the cell begins to basically just die quicker. And we're no longer moving nutrients into the cell, which means we can't produce energy. Mitochondrial output becomes more of a challenge. And then all of a sudden, genetics come into play because, our body's built to override genetic, flaws.
Right.
That's proven. That was proven during the Genome Project.
Hmm.
And so, if we can improve cellular function, we're digging deep enough that we can actually override genetic imperfections in the body, which is amazing. And what humic and fulvic do, which are so simple to take, I mean, we're talking about a liquid you can put into water
Right.
and use a couple of times a day, relatively inexpensive, is it's first providing a wealth of trace minerals in the full array of what the body needs in the right biological form to use. And there's trace minerals, there's over 80 trace minerals that we need. I think I mentioned to you the mineral wheel. And I sent a copy to you. I always encourage people when you're thinking about using minerals, Google the mineral wheel. And I want you to look at the complexity, all the interactions of all these minerals that are required to help our body function properly. It's insane to try to figure that out on your own. Well, nature did that. God did that for us by creating these molecules.
Right.
So when we bring these molecules in the body, not only are we getting this bountiful supply of trace minerals and elements, these molecules are actually charging the cellular membrane. They're improving the energetic capacity of that membrane. What does that mean? It means now we can absorb things better. Fulvic is considered nature's best delivery system for nutrients into the cell.
Right.
So it enhances the bioavailability. You were talking about eating more organic foods. If you're eating organic foods and you want an insurance policy that you're going to get the best benefit from that, adding fulvic will ensure the absorption level into the cell.
Hmm.
We're improving intercellular hydration. They're the most powerful antioxidants we know on the planet. They are incredible detoxifiers in helping to bind and remove toxins from the body efficiently. So, when we're looking at a simple way to begin, think about focusing on cellular health and improvement, and now supporting that trickle up method, because eventually you're going to be improving tissue health, organ, and system health. It's so simple. When I heard this concept, I almost couldn't believe it, because I'm like, well, I got to use these 6 different things to move the needle. But we used a test in the clinic called bioimpedance body composition analysis. I know you're familiar with that. And one of the properties we measured was phase angle, if you've heard of that. And phase angle is almost like a summation of how functional the cell is in the body.
Mhm.
And prior to coming across humic and fulvic, it was such a difficult thing to move the needle on. And once I started integrating humic and fulvic in our practice, that was something we began to see move. And I almost want you to think of just like an energy meter. That's just kind of giving us a good indicator of how energetic the cell is. So, very simple, targeted approach to cellular health improvement. And I love, if anybody's kind of questioning supplementation, it's such a wonderful, easy way to begin and see results.
So you have, I know there's a product called Humic and Fulvic SC, which stands
Right?
for super concentrated, and you have a liquid form
We
and you
do.
have a
We have it
capsule form.
in a capsule form.
So that'd be a great place for people to start, because it's going to, whatever your goals are, it
Right.
doesn't matter what your goals are, it's going to support it. If your goal is more energy, it's going to support that. If your goal is detox, it's going to support that.
Right.
If your goal is to absorb nutrients out of your food better, it's going to support that. So it sounds like it's a supportive tool that's going to help anybody.
It's taking a real foundational approach
Right.
is how I like to take it. When we think about a house, you could paint it, you can put new roof on it. If you got a really bad foundation, you're going to have a bad house, right? So this is such a wonderful foundational approach that anybody could use. And why does it kind of fit the bill for everybody? Because we're no longer getting these miraculous molecules in our food anymore,
Mhm.
and our bodies were designed to have these. So really, we're kind of completing. We're adding back into what we should be getting anyway. So if people are even out there going, well, I want to try to do this all through nutrition, through eating,
Right.
you're really just kind of completing that with humic and fulvic.
So what's the difference between the liquid and the capsules? Would they pick one over the other? When would
Mhm.
be give us
It's kind of more portability for people. I love the super concentrated liquid. You just basically put it in water. You put 20 drops in water a couple of times per day. It's so easy to use. It's got a little bit of an earthy taste. It's not bad to take. There's no preservatives or sweeteners or anything in it. It's just pure humic and fulvic. The benefit, I think, to the super concentrate is you're getting 120 servings in there, which is great. So it's very cost effective,
right.
easy to use. You can kind of control the dosing if people want to use a little less or a little more. The capsules, we're giving you less dosing, same amount of humic and fulvic per capsule as there is to a milliliter of liquid. So it really is kind of a preference. Some people like taking a liquid, some people just are on the go and they like a capsule.
Great. So that's a great foundation. And what you said is actually what I was thinking, because it's the same time thing I always tell people is we want to treat disease, or we
Right.
want to treat our symptoms, and we want to feel better.
Right.
But if that foundation's not there, or you're not supporting the foundation, you're not ultimately going to get to where you want to get to. You might feel better, you might accomplish something related to your health, but if you want to build like long-term health, regardless of your age, or if we're working on our children and we want to build
Mhm.
that foundation for our children for the rest of their life, we got to start with these basic, fundamental
Mhm.
nutrients. So moving beyond humic and fulvic, uh,
Okay.
just a good reminder that we all need those. It needs to be a part of everybody's program. What would be the next step?
I think the next step I love to focus on is gut health. When we think about the body from a foundational perspective, where I've seen us move the needle the quickest is when we're focusing on cellular health, which we've kind of covered. And now we're focusing on gut health, because I would hazard a guess that probably almost everybody in our country has some level of gut dysfunction.
Mhm.
If you've taken an antibiotic once in your life, if you're eating commercially raised meats out there that contain antibiotics, you've just kind of decimated the whole gut microbiome. Toxins, things like glyphosate that we've all been exposed to.
Yep.
And a lot of people, I'm sure, that tune in your show have heard about leaky gut.
Hmm.
And, glyphosate has been proven to be really the root cause of leaky gut because it oxidizes the tight cell junctions in our gut that kind of allows these junctions to open. And now we're moving bacteria, toxins, proteins, things right into the bloodstream. And it's creating this autoimmune response that we're dealing with today. So I think, looking at it, kind of the second stage of this would be really improving gut function. Even if people don't have indigestion or acid reflux and things, which they typically equate to, well, my gut's not working right. We all can benefit from a healthier gut.
Yeah.
And it's not just, bowel movements and indigestion. It's things like hormone regulation, neurotransmitter regulation, immunity. I mean, how much of our immune system is dependent on the gut?
Hmm.
Absorption, metabolism, all, we can go on and on. So, the gut is tied to pretty much everything in the body. And so we've got a product that we spent over 2 years building called GI Ultramax that really works with detoxing the gut, removing things like glyphosate and other toxins, targeting inflammation, which I feel is probably one of the massive root causes to all disease today, is inflammation.
Hmm.
Improving immune response, repairing that gut lining, reducing oxidation, and also supporting the healthy colonization of the thousands of species of good bacteria in our gut through what we call a prebiotic approach, where we're bringing a food source into the healthy, these healthy microbes in the gut today. A lot of people take probiotics, which is fine. But what I believe is that if we're trying to push these good guys into a really toxic, oxidized environment, the chance of survival is probably pretty nil. And that's why some people may do okay with them, some people don't.
Yeah.
So I think, if you're thinking about truly getting to the root, getting to that foundational approach next to cellular health improvement, I would say targeting the gut would be my next suggestion.
Brilliant. And I think what people also need to know in here, we want to talk about the brilliance of humic and fulvic minerals.
Right.
Humic minerals bind and clear glyphosate out of
Absolutely.
the gut.
Yeah.
And so we need that today because we've been so inundated with herbicides and pesticides. I mean, I run labs and 2,4-D shows up in
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
atrazine, glyphosate. And you know what I'm still seeing in people's labs they still test for today that was banned over 60 years ago?
Yeah.
DDT.
DDT.
DDT. Still showing up in people's labs.
I know.
So this is why it's like we have to protect ourselves.
Right.
We
Well, the
need to
body just
learn,
binds, it holds. A lot of people
right?
that are dealing with what they perceive as obesity and like I can't get rid of excess weight. A lot of times it's toxins in the body.
Right.
It's not
Toxins are
maybe
lipophilic. Toxins are
absolutely.
fat. They live
Right.
in fat cells, right?
That's absolutely correct. So, and that's the body's way of kind of neutralizing the oxidative stresses on the body. It's like, if I can't burn it like glucose, if I'm getting too much sugar, I'm going to convert it to fat to store it.
Right.
If the body is exposed to too many toxins, one of the first things it does is it tries to convert and store that in fat to neutralize the exposure. So I've found even people, dealing with these sticky weight issues that when we begin bringing humic and fulvic in, we begin focusing on the gut health. Now the body's in a better position to begin binding, drawing these toxins safely out of the body,
Right.
and without a lot of the reactions, unfortunate, uncomfortable reactions people go through.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, guess what? The weight becomes not as big of an issue now because the body can release these toxins finally.
And what people need to understand is they need to have an education about this because we've been so convinced that weight loss it's a plan, it's a program.
Hmm.
You should lose this many pounds each month or whatever. And it's like, no, you need to take these things for 6 months, a year, long term, and then you'll see the changes
Hmm.
happening over the months. But we've been so I don't know, with marketing and the commercialization of the industry and the quick fixes and the magic pills and like the
Hmm.
Ozempic nightmare, right? That's happening
Oh
right
yeah,
now. It's like people are being deceived by these companies that, oh, you take this pill and it's going to take care of your problems, and like how horrific, right? That
yeah,
we're taking these pharmaceutical drugs because we're so desperate to lose weight. But
right,
the reality is to address these things properly for long-term health and to lose weight in a healthy way long term is
right.
to actually support your body nutritionally, remove the toxins, and it's going to take a few months, and that's okay. But
But
people,
we didn't get here overnight. I always
right,
use the rule of thumb in my clinic that for every 7 years you've done it wrong, give yourself a year to do it right to erase that. And that's not a bad turnaround time. That's a pretty good return on investment.
it really is.
But we got to get away from chasing the weight. I used to tell people you cannot use your bathroom scale as your health meter.
Hmm.
If you have a weight issue, you need to begin finding practitioners like what we do and getting a body composition analysis, understanding what's the makeup of the weight, how much muscle to fat do you have, because you can begin to kind of monitor as you're going through this. What am I losing? I can remember the hundreds and hundreds of clients we worked with that had done diets over and over again and they'd lost the same 20, 30, 40 pounds. But that's what they were always shooting for. And then when we began working with them, they would lose 10 or 15 pounds and actually be smaller than when they lost 30 or 40 pounds doing it the wrong way
Right.
because they were maintaining more muscle. The body was more vibrant and building and repairing, and it was getting rid of the excess fat, which takes up, a lot more room in the body.
Yeah.
So, again, so much of, I think of our messaging out there is for people to look beyond just the symptom. You always have to understand there's a cause. There's a cause and effect for everything. And God created our body in his image. I don't think God, when we meet him, is going to be taking, insulin injections, or he's going to talk to us about the cholesterol medicine he's on or pain medicine. He created us his own image, which I think is perfection,
Right.
and gave us all the resources. But one of the resources he gave us was a brain and a mind. And
Hmm.
what we have to do today is step back for a minute and look at what's going on in medicine today. And trust me, I have great admiration for the medical system. It's best emergent care. If you are diseased, they've got things they can go to work on, but you still got to get to the root. You can't avoid, if you want to be well, you still got to look for the cause.
Yeah.
And that's where the blood testing we talked about, functional blood chemistry, mineral analysis, hormone, body composition analysis, these are all just fundamental things that people should be looking at.
Yeah. Amen. Well, I I love staying practical, and I love people to get takeaways from these
Right,
podcasts. So let's take it another step. We need humic and fulvic minerals.
right.
We need good gut health, and most everybody has gut issues. You got a great product that's basically like an all-in-one gut formula. You don't have to
Hmm.
take four, five, six different things now. It's in
Right,
the GI Ultramax. And so, what's one more that you would add to the mix that people are like, man, I just want to take three things
right.
going to help me get well, or this is going to help me maintain health long term.
My favorite protocol when am asked that question, obviously we covered humic and fulvic, which is an absolute in the gut GI Ultramax formula, would be using something like our pH balancer, which is one of our comprehensive all-in-one daily formulas. Again, what we've done is simplified this into one product where you're not having to take vitamins and minerals and digestive support and antioxidants and joint support. And when you look at the breakdown of these formulas, like you mentioned, we're using the proper biological forms. These may be a little more costly than just going and buying your generic, vitamin and mineral product because these are the correct forms. You've got to understand the body was made to absorb certain types of nutrients. And that's one of the things that we go to the ends of the earth looking for is the absolute best forms in ensuring we have humic and fulvic in there to increase the bioavailability. So our nugget today for a wonderful foundational plan humic and fulvic, our GI Ultramax, and our pH balancer all in one daily formula. And I can tell you, I have talked to people about that 10 or 15 years ago, and they're still using it today. And that's their go-to.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the response we get.
Yeah. Amen. I put almost everybody I work with on the pH balancer, the humic and fulvic. Yeah. I mean, I'm using these obviously clinical in
Right.
my practice, and I've seen such profound changes in people. And then people will often mention, "Oh, I've been tested, and I have MTHFR, gene
Right.
mutation, and I have methylation issues, and all these things pop up." And sometimes I forget to even mention that to people
Hmm.
because I'm like, "Well, it's already covered. It's already
We
taken
got you
care of.
covered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got you covered. We're aware of these issues. The statistics now say 70-80% of people have methylation issues.
Right.
So if you take the right products, if you're going to take your B complex or your pH
Hmm.
balancer, they're all methylated because, again, your formulators, whoever they are, they're brilliant
Yeah.
and they understand these things and they understand the issues in our culture and our world today. And so you're going to get the right forms. You're not going to have methylation issues if you
That's
take
right.
Mother Earth Labs products, right?
That's right. Because it can be a challenge for people when they're taking, like, for instance, B12. Most people know B12, and most B12 out there is a methylcobalamin. Or not methylcobalamin, sorry, cyocobalamin,
Right.
and it's basically a derivative of cyanide. It's toxic in the body, but that's what they see. And the difference between a methylcobalamin and a denosylcobalamin, which is the reduced form, we even go one step further, like with our B12, and go with a denosylcobalamin, which is the reduced form of methyl.
Wow.
We realized years ago that this methylation problem affected so much of our population today. And we were like, well, let's just not even worry about it. We'll bypass that. We'll put the right forms in so the body doesn't have to try to, create this process that it's already challenged with.
Right.
And that's why people feel the difference so quick, too. I mean, they really do feel you get those good B vitamins on board, the brain fog, the energy, things begin to improve pretty quickly.
Yeah. Amen. And what I want people to understand is, we're not talking about, like these three formulas just being taken by somebody for like general good health only. Like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm in pretty good shape. I just want to take these for maintenance long term. No, we're talking like you should be taking these formulas if you've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue, MS, cancer. I mean, we're
Right,
talking the most serious of the serious things because maybe just touch real quick on, our medical system is designed to give you a diagnosis and to give you a treatment. And people feel good when they feel like, oh, they're treating my condition,
right,
but they never talk about vitamins, minerals, humic,
right.
fulvic, balancing your pH. None of this is even discussed. So I just really want people to understand and maybe just tell us a little bit more that, like, no, people with chronic health issues
Yeah.
should be taking these because you've seen it clinically.
Oh, absolutely. I used to talk to people in the clinic, and they'd come in and say, "Well, was just diagnosed with diabetes," and I'm like, "Well, what did your blood work tell you last year?" Well, I was almost there, but not quite. And the year before, I was, moving towards that. So over 5 years, it's like we're moving towards being out of that range, which the medical system is looking at, which is okay because that's what they're trained to do. It's like monitor, monitor until you become diseased, and then let's treat.
Right.
But it's telling us a story on where you're heading, and we can reverse that. We can turn that back. So
Absolutely.
you're right. For people that are dealing with these autoimmune conditions, the weight problems, the diabetes, this is such a great foundational approach because you're just really putting into play these key foundational process and allowing the body to begin to do the healing itself. And that's, to me, I've yet over 30 plus years to find any better medical system than what we were given internally.
Right.
We just got to harness it, support it, and let it do its thing.
Amen. And I think that's the beauty of working with a naturopathic doctor because
Mhm.
we're looking at the whole person. We're
Right.
looking at the foundation. We're looking for the root cause. We're talking about maybe emotional health, like,
Right.
lifestyle. We're looking at the whole picture where the medical system is so narrow-minded, I guess you
Hmm.
could say, in their understanding in their treatment of chronic disease. Like you said, They handle emergencies great for the most
Mhm.
part. But where are we at as a culture in dealing with chronic disease that's only becoming more and more and more?
Right. And I used to tell people, if you're wanting to be managed, that's the perfect system. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your choice.
Right.
But if you really are seeking, wellness and health, and you want to kind of get back in control of that, which we always should be, then you've got to educate and empower yourself. And then most importantly, put the right things in the body to give it that foundation to start producing energy, to detox, to repair, to rebuild, to help you with improved sleep, to get you out of this heightened stress state that so many people are in today. And yeah, that's why I kind of go back to our pH balancer. Most people are dealing with a lot of stress today. And it doesn't always have to be bad. It could just be that they're, working two jobs, or they're on working and then running the committees, or they're running the kids all around. You know how our life is today,
New life.
uh, and it's stress. And we need additional support, because when you're under stress, the body eats up an awful lot of reserves.
Yeah.
And we've tried to think that through when we put a product together like our pH balancer with the adaptogens in there to help support filling those kind of coffers up that we're depleting when we're under stress. So it's why it's such a good fit for people. And I'll tell you, even people that are just wanting to stay well, that are like, I don't think I'm headed there. I'm trying to be more responsible. Still a wonderful protocol, because you're just hitting all the key points of supporting good foundational health.
Well, here, let's close out with this for this episode. Put you on the spot here, real quick. We talked about
Uh-huh.
3 products that are
Right.
great in all of your clinical experience. Why don't you tell us the top 3 things, specific nutrients that people are most chronically deficient in?
Well, I'll start out by saying trace minerals across the board. And that's where humic and fulvic comes in, because it's just not something people think about. It's not really talked a lot about out
Right.
there in the supplement field. So trace minerals are vital, because these are catalysts. You could be taking a lot of vitamins, like I mentioned, or a lot of calcium and magnesium, but without the trace minerals, it's kind of like putting gas in a car and taking the spark plugs out.
Right.
May have a full tank, but there's nothing to kind of ignite and help it work. B
Good analogy.
vitamins probably would be my next thing. People
Okay.
again are so depleted today with these vital Bs that are supporting energy and cognitive health. And I think the stress again, when we're under stress, we rob a lot of B vitamins from the body.
Okay.
That would be critical. And I think the third set I would look at probably would be the what we're doing with the gut support to really help support that microbiome. Again, we're learning so much more about how these bacteria that are in our gut, the good bacteria, are pretty much connected to everything.
Hmm.
Brain health. I mean, the gut's now referred to as our second brain. Metabolism. So supporting that environment with the right nutrients is so critical. And I think that's just such a great, starting point for anybody that's looking to improve their health.
Amen. And I'll throw one more in there. We have about 2,500 products
Hmm.
in our store. And our number one selling formula, years running now, is a Mother Earth Labs formula. We have a lot of companies, a lot of products. Can you guess what our number one overall selling product is?
Could be our pH balancer,
It could be, but it's
or
magnesium
maybe the
ER.
humic and fulvic. Huh?
Magnesium ER.
Oh, the Mag ER.
Yeah,
That you're absolutely right. I mean, magnesium deficiency, and we work with a lot of doctors that do RBC magnesium level tests, not just serum.
right.
And we've worked with them as we were putting this together. And we think of magnesium; it's involved in so many different things. If people are having energy problems out there, good chance you're deficient in magnesium. Muscle problems, relaxation, these things.
Yes,
This goes so far beyond just taking one type of magnesium, because there are many forms.
exactly.
And our extended release actually has 7 forms of magnesium that are used in different biological functions. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I would put that probably in our top 3.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. It's a great product. Well, thank you, Dr. Stewart. I appreciate the insight. Thank you for the practical tips on things that people can take right away to get started, whether you're trying to maintain better health, improve your health, or if you're dealing with a chronic issue, these are going to help
Mhm.
you get better. Very insightful, very practical. And yeah, thank you for your wisdom and your expertise.
Well, so great being with you today, and I look forward to the next time.
Great.
Take care.
You too.